Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are discussing about minerals and trace elements, and the minerals are the elements found in the diet that will be required in the small amounts for the normal growth and maintenance of the body. And similarly the trace elements are very minute amount of some of the elements present in the nature which will be required by our body for the maintenance of their normal functions. Now, by definition, minerals are essential for normal growth and maintenance of the human body, and these are classified into the major elements and some of the trace elements. The major elements are those elements that are required in more than 100 milligram per day amount, and these include calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, chloride, sulfur and fluoride. And very important of these are calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium and potassium and chloride. These sodium, potassium and chloride are very important ions present in our plasma, and calcium, magnesium and phosphorus are important ingredients and in the form of cofactors, second messengers and constructive units of the body, and we will discuss their function in detail in the next segments. And the trace elements are those elements in the body whose requirement in the body is less than 100 milligram per day, and these include iron, iodine, copper, manganese, zinc, molybdenum and selenium. Since these are present in very minute amounts, so their adequacy in the diet is mostly fulfilled if the diet is well balanced. And very interesting effect about these trace elements is that the quantity of these elements in diet is modified and is changed depending upon the soil of the diet. जहाँ की मिट्टी से हमारा अनाज या डाइट आएगी, उस मिट्टी की कंपोजिशन पे डिपेंड करता है कि उसमें आयोडीन, सिलीनियम एंड द अदर आयरन और कॉपर और जिंक कितनी मिकदार में है। और अगर हमारी डाइट डिफरेंट रीजन से आएगी तो इनकी बहुत वेल बैलेंस्ड क्वांटिटी अवेलेबल होगी, और अगर हमारी डाइट एक ही रीजन से आएगी जो कि आयोडीन डेफिशिएंट होगा या सिलीनियम डेफिशिएंट होगा, तो वी विल फेस द डेफिशिएंसी डिजीजेस ऑफ दीज ट्रेस एलिमेंट्स इन आवर डाइट. Similarly, some other elements which are necessary for body but their exact function are not known, but their deficiency will be manifested. These include chromium, nickel, bromide, lithium and barium. And some elements which are present in tissues, they remain in the tissues, they are detectable in the tissues, but their exact function is not known and they are considered as non-essential. These are rubidium, silver, gold and bismuth. And some of the trace elements which even in very minute amount will be considered as toxic to our body, because they will alter the function of certain enzymes, coenzymes and cofactors and lead to toxicity by hindering the mechanism of action of certain processes and biochemical actions. These are aluminium, lead, cadmium and mercury, and their presence will be manifested as toxicity of the mercury, toxicity of the lead toxicity, similarly arsenic toxicity. So this was the classification of the minerals into the major elements, trace elements and necessary elements, non-essential and toxic elements. There is another classification of the minerals according to their function in the body, and this is very important SCQ in the prof, the classification of mineral according to their function. So the minerals are classified according to their structural function. Structural function कौन परफॉर्म करता है? कैल्शियम, मैग्नीशियम एंड phosphate. These are structurally important minerals. Similarly, some minerals are involved in membrane function such as sodium and potassium, because they are responsible for the generation of the action potential and for the transport of the certain hormones and certain elements along with them to inside and outside of the cell. Some minerals and trace elements function as prosthetic groups in enzymes. These are the cofactors: copper, iron, molybdenum, selenium, and zinc and cobalt. Such as some of these cofactors are needed in electron transport chain, some of the cofactors are needed in sulfides and certain other processes. And they also have a regulatory role or role in the hormonal action, such as calcium, chromium, iodine, magnesium, manganese, and sodium and potassium. They also have regulatory role. An example of this will be the importance of the calcium for the release of the hormones from the pancreas, such as insulin hormone and glucagon hormone, and also it help out in the action of these hormones when it acts as a second messenger system. Similarly, some minerals are known to be essential but function is unknown, such as silicon, vanadium, and some have effect in the body but essentiality is not established, such as fluoride and lithium, because the fluoride deficiency will be manifested, lithium deficiency and toxicity will be manifested drastically in the body. And some may occur in the foods and known to be toxic in excess, such as arsenic, such as mercury, lead, very well known examples of the mineral toxicity. So this table is from the Harper and should be remembered by heart. अच्छी तरह से याद करना है, because this is important viva question as well as this is important university question. Now we will discuss in detail about the minor elements, very important elements such as calcium. And calcium is important element of the structural units of the body, such as bone and teeth. This is very important mineral, and about 1000 gram is present in an adult. एंड जितनी भी कैल्शियम बॉडी में होती है उसमें से 99%, अबाउट 99% इज सिक्वेस्टर्ड, इकट्ठी हुई होती है इन बोन्स एंड टीथ, एंड द रेस्ट इज प्रेजेंट इन द अदर बॉडी टिश्यूज. Other body tissues including the skin, the other appendages of the body, other cells of the body where it is needed. Now this table is showing the requirements, daily requirements, 24-hour requirement of calcium in the body. Mostly adults need 800 milligram per day of the calcium, and similarly infants need 400 to 600 milligram of the calcium. Children have almost equal requirement as that of the adults, because they are the growing ones, young ones and pregnant ladies have got the maximum requirement as that of the teenagers, because teenagers are at the maximum growth spurts, and in lactating women and pregnant ladies there is the double burden upon the human body. So they are those two portions that require maximum amount of the calcium. Now these are the sources of the calcium shown here. The basic source, doodh and ande, these are the two basic sources of the calcium, and as a general rule everything that has white color is having calcium sequestered inside it. So milk, cheese and eggs are the major sources of the calcium. Nuts and beans and lentils are the intermediate sources of the calcium, and similarly one of the plants and one of the vegetables, cabbage, is also having basic staple diet of the calcium. As in our country we basically depend upon the lentils, mostly दालों पे डिपेंड करती है more than half of the population. So हम दालों से कैल्शियम एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हैं. Since the above three are the major sources of the calcium, but these are not reachable by most of the people. Most of the people depend upon lentils for their basic need of the calcium. So the deficiency of the calcium is much more in our population as compared to advanced populations in which calcium, milk, egg and cheese are abundant. So nuts are least available to most of the population. Figs are also least available. So lentil using and cabbage using population faces the calcium deficiency. Now the calcium's normal level in our body is in the range of 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter, and this level is having a very narrow range of the calcium. Now 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter has to be maintained in order for the normal function of the calcium to take place. 9 से 11 मिलीग्राम इसके दरमियान सिर्फ एक ही डिजिट आती है, और इस 9 से 11 के दरमियान बहुत नैरो रेंज है. अगर इससे ऊपर हो जाए तो भी प्रॉब्लम होगी, और अगर इससे नीचे हो जाएगा तो भी प्रॉब्लम होगी. सो 9 to 11 मिलीग्राम पर डेसीलीटर हैज़ गॉट अ वेरी नैरो रेंज, और इसको मेंटेन करने के लिए बॉडी हैज़ टू फंक्शन वेरी डेलिकेटली टू रेगुलराइज द level of the calcium. And if we convert it into milliequals per deciliter, it is 4.5 to 5.5 milliequals per deciliter of the concentration of the calcium. 9 से नीचे गिर जाएगी अगर इसकी concentration, then there will be a state of hypocalcemia. Similarly, if it crosses 11 milligram per deciliter, there will be a state of hypercalcemia. So hypocalcemia and hypercalcemia both will be dangerous for the body. Now absorption of the calcium takes place occurs by active uptake of the small intestine. So active uptake means that it has to be transported inside the cell against the concentration gradient. क्योंकि सेल के अंदर जो इसकी क्वांटिटी है वो ऑलरेडी ज़्यादा है than that of the serum. So active uptake of small intestine, that will be discussed later on. Only 10 to 20% of the dietary calcium is absorbed. जितनी भी कैल्शियम हम बॉडी में लेंगे in the diet, उसका सिर्फ 10%, 10 to 20% will be absorbed. The rest of the amount will be excreted. Most of the calcium is excreted in the stools, and the lesser amount is excreted in the urine. Now as we were discussing about the absorption of the calcium, के small intestine से mostly calcium की absorption होती है, और daily diet का only 10 to 20% is absorbed. जब absorption की बात आएगी तो absorption is dependent upon certain factors, and these factors are vitamin D and some of the other factors. These factors are vitamin D, which induces an intracellular protein calbindin. So calbindin is very important protein that is involved in calcium absorption from intestine. So the hypercalcemia is a state when there is overproduction of parathyroid hormone. Hypocalcemia is a state when there is deficiency of parathyroid hormone. So the other regulatory factor that controls the quantity of calcium in the serum is parathyroid hormone. One was vitamin D, indirectly calbindin protein, and the other is parathyroid hormone. So these 2 and 3 factors are the main regulatory factors for the calcium concentration in the serum. There is a third regulatory factor also, that is a hormone called calcitonin. Calcitonin, along with vitamin D and parathyroid hormone, is also responsible for the normal regulation of the calcium in the body. Now the absorption of the calcium by the vitamin D is shown in this diagram, in which cholecalciferol, the precursor of the vitamin D, is converted to the active form in the liver to 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, and then this 25-hydroxycholecalciferol will be converted by kidney to 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol, and this is the active form of the vitamin D3 that induces the calcium binding protein called binding in the intestinal mucosa. So this protein will activate the calcium dependent ATPase, alkaline phosphatase, that will cause influx of the calcium, increased absorption of the calcium, and this calcium will be released into the plasma. And when the concentration of the calcium in the plasma will be increased from the certain threshold, as we have previously discussed, that the narrow range of 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter is maintained, and when this threshold is increased, there will be a negative feedback towards the parathyroid hormone, and this parathyroid hormone will take a regulatory step towards hydroxylases in the kidney to activate or deactivate the 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol. मतलब ये है कि जब भी कैल्शियम बॉडी में कम होगा, प्लाज्मा में कम होगा, तो पैराथायराइड हार्मोन ज़्यादा रिलीज होगा और वो हाइड्रोक्सिलेज को एक्टिवेट करेगा और विटामिन डी की एक्टिवेशन के बाद कैल्शियम की एब्जॉर्प्शन बढ़ा देगा. जब प्लाज्मा कैल्शियम लेवल ज़्यादा हो जाएगा तो वो पैराथायराइड ग्लैंड पे नेगेटिव फीडबैक इफेक्ट देगा और उससे हाइड्रोक्सिलेजेस कम एक्टिवेट होंगे और उससे कैल्शियम की एब्जॉर्प्शन कम हो जाएगी. सो इट इज़ अ रेगुलेटरी फीडबैक मैकेनिज्म फ्रॉम विटामिन D3 एक्टिवेशन बाय parathyroid glands as well as by curl binding proteins. So calcium is regulated by vitamin D, parathyroid hormone, curl binding proteins, and there is another hormone regulating the activity and the concentration of the calcium in the body, that is calcitonin. Now calcitonin and parathyroid hormone work exactly in the opposite directions. Now when absorbed, calcium is converted to calcium phosphate. It is first converted to amorphous form and then it is converted into crystalline form. The crystalline form is hydroxyapatite and its formulation is shown here, and these crystals are rod shaped crystals. These are rod shaped crystals which are the pillars of the hydroxyapatite crystals shown here in the bone. So these hydroxyapatite pillars are the sequestration of calcium inside the bone, and there is a continuous exchange of the calcium between bone and the extracellular fluid, whether from the hydroxyapatite crystals or whether from the amorphous forms. As we have already discussed, the narrow range of the calcium in the serum is 9 to 11 milligram per deciliter, and about 50% of it is bound to the proteins and cannot diffuse through the capillaries. So this 50% of the calcium which is bound to the protein is known as non-diffusible calcium, and about 5% is diffusible, bound to the organic anions, for example citrate, and the remaining 45% is free ionic form. This free ionic form is diffusible, and this diffusible calcium is responsible for all the organic functions of the body. Now what organic functions calcium does in the body is very important question. This is also Viva question. This is SCQ, important SCQ, the functions of the calcium, and you people already know some of these functions from the first year. Now calcium takes part in formation of bones and teeth. It takes part in excitability and conductivity of the nerves. Neuromuscular transmission is regulated by the calcium at the neurofilaments. Similarly, excitability and contractility of the myocardium is also regulated by the calcium. Coagulation of the blood takes place by the fourth coagulant factor, which is calcium, and action of the hormones such as release of the insulin and glucagon takes place by the calcium activation.